What if everything they taught you about the origin of humanity was wrong, on purpose? Not out of ignorance, not by accident, but because someone, somewhere, decided what you should know and what you shouldn't. While you were memorizing in school that we evolved from primates. In a neat linear progression, pyramids rested silently at the bottom of oceans. Ancient maps depicted continents that hadn't been discovered yet. Distant peoples across the globe spoke of gods who descended from the sky, bringing knowledge and fire. And no one stopped to ask the dangerous question, what if it's not mythology at all? Think about this for a moment. Really think about it. Every civilization, separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, tells the same story. The same flood, the same fall from grace, the same beings of light who once walked among us. Carl Jung called these archetypal patterns emerging from our collective unconscious. But what if Jung was only half right? What if these aren't just psychological patterns, but memories? Memories of something that actually happened, something so profound, so transformative, that it carved itself into the very DNA of human consciousness. What you're about to discover isn't in textbooks. It's not taught in universities. It's not a conspiracy theory crafted by imaginative minds. It's what remains when official narratives can no longer ignore the evidence. They lied about our origin, but they couldn't erase all the traces. And perhaps now, you're ready to start remembering. For a long time, we were conditioned to believe that human history unfolds like a straight line, from grunting cavemen to gleaming skyscrapers, from stone tools to silicon chips, a story of constant, measurable progress. But what if that story is just convenient? Have you ever felt it? That strange sensation when you stand before something ancient? A stone circle, a temple, a pyramid. That inexplicable recognition, as if you've been there before. As if some part of you remembers something your conscious mind cannot grasp. Graham Hancock called us a species with amnesia. That phrase isn't just provocative, it's an invitation to discomfort. Because the more we dig, literally and figuratively, the more we realize that the foundation of our supposed progress may rest on ruins far older and more sophisticated than we were ever told. You know that feeling when you solve a puzzle and suddenly everything clicks into place. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine discovering that crucial pieces of the puzzle were deliberately hidden from you, that the picture you've been assembling your entire life is incomplete by design. That's the feeling you get when you encounter Göbekli Tepe, a 12,000-year-old temple complex with astronomical alignments and engineering precision that shouldn't exist according to our timeline, built by people who supposedly hadn't even invented agriculture yet. Or when you study the Piri Reis map from 1513, showing Antarctica's coastline without ice, centuries before we supposedly knew the continent existed, let alone what it looked like beneath its frozen shell. Or when you see the submerged pyramids off the coast of Japan, silent and soaked, defying every date and dogma of conventional archaeology. If history were truly linear, these pieces wouldn't be on the board. It's like discovering an iPhone inside a Neanderthal cave. The cognitive dissonance is immediate and unsettling, but here's what's even more unsettling. The systematic way these discoveries are marginalized, ignored, or explained away by academic institutions. The real question isn't, did advanced civilizations exist before us? The real question is, why are they so desperate for us to believe they didn't? And that's when something shifts inside you. Because if the past was infinitely more complex than they claim, then perhaps the present is just a reheated repetition of cycles we've forgotten. There's a pattern here, a pattern that becomes visible only when you step back far enough to see it. Plato warned us about Atlantis, not as fantasy, but as historical memory, a magnificent civilization that collapsed not from lack of technology, but from excess of arrogance, from the dangerous delusion that material power equals spiritual wisdom. It wasn't just a cautionary tale. It was a warning about cycles, about how humanity rises, forgets, falls, and rises again. Before writing, before recorded history, other cultures may have reached heights we now call futuristic, Lemuria, Mu, pre-flood civilizations. These aren't baseless inventions of romantic minds. They're fragmented memories, echoed across different parts of the world like a persistent whisper of who we once were. The Hopi speak of previous worlds that were destroyed when humanity forgot its spiritual purpose. The Hindus describe vast cycles of time called yugas, where civilizations rise and fall in predictable patterns. The Maya calculated time in cycles so vast they make our recorded history seem like a brief footnote. Different cultures, different languages, same memory. History is not a staircase leading ever upward. It's a record player, and when it scratches, the needle returns to the same point. Wars, empires, technological achievement, spiritual decay, collapse, and then reconstruction, as if nothing ever happened. We live in an illusion of progress. But what is progress if it leads us to the same cliff as before? The clothes change, the names change, the technology evolves, but the plot remains eerily consistent. Every time human ego exceeds its understanding of cosmic law, the fall comes. It's not punishment. It's physics, spiritual physics. Remember when they said, "This is the most advanced era in human history"? Advanced in what exactly? Because from a distance it looks like humanity is running on a treadmill. Lots of movement, little actual displacement. We've gained the ability to split atoms while losing the ability to sit in silence. We've mapped the human genome while forgetting how to map the human soul. Each ancient cycle leaves clues, monuments that align with star patterns, texts that speak of gods who were once men, technologies that seem impossibly advanced for their supposed time period. What if we're not climbing toward some ultimate destination? What if we're just spinning without noticing, trapped in patterns we've inherited but don't understand? And the strangest thing of all, while we spin in these ancient patterns, some silences begin to scream. There's a kind of polite censorship in academia. No one needs to shout to silence inconvenient truths. Just ignore them with professional courtesy. Human footprints in million-year-old rocks. Elongated skulls that don't fit any evolutionary tree. Impossible artifacts found in geological layers that contradict the official story. Advanced mathematical knowledge in cultures that supposedly hadn't invented the wheel. Michael Cremo, researcher and author of Forbidden Archaeology, puts it perfectly. The problem isn't the absence of evidence, it's the absence of permission to study it. And that changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. I remember visiting a museum years ago and noticing that some of the most intriguing artifacts were stored in the basement, far from public view. When I asked the guide about them, she whispered, almost embarrassed, that those findings didn't fit the main exhibition narrative. It's as if science had become an à la carte restaurant. You only get what's on the menu. The rest stays locked in the kitchen, regardless of how exotic or enlightening it might be. But that's not science. That's historical marketing. And the public loses, believing they've seen the whole picture when they've only been shown a carefully curated display window. This isn't about conspiracy in the dramatic sense. It's about institutional inertia, about careers built on certain interpretations of evidence, about textbooks that would need to be rewritten and reputations that would need to be reconsidered. The philosopher of science Thomas Kuhn wrote about paradigm shifts. How scientific communities resist new evidence until the old paradigm simply cannot accommodate reality anymore. Then, suddenly, everything changes overnight. But what happens when those in power have invested too much in the old paradigm to allow a shift? You get precisely what we see today: a growing divide between official knowledge and observed reality, between what institutions teach and what independent researchers discover. Byung-Chul Han, the Korean-German philosopher, says we live in the era of transparency. But it's a transparency that surveils rather than illuminates. Everything exposed, everything accessible, yet somehow everything shallower. We have more information than ever before, yet less wisdom. More data, yet less understanding. More connection, yet deeper disconnection from our own origins. What they call freedom might just be a cage without bars. What they call progress might just be sophisticated regression. Today, the more digitally connected someone becomes, the more disconnected they seem from their own essence. It's like we're all actors in a play, handed the role, the costume, even the script. They just forgot to mention that the script was written by invisible hands. And those hands have a vested interest in keeping us focused on the performance rather than questioning the play itself. But some people wake up in the middle of the scene. Some look around and realize they're surrounded by extras, all performing without knowing why. Everything you've encountered here points to something many are afraid to admit. Our true origin is not simple nor purely biological. It is symbolic, spiritual, ancestral, and it was forgotten not by accident, but by design. The story we were given is linear, limited, domesticated, but the real origin may not lie in time at all. It may lie in consciousness. There's a curious detail in myths from around the world. They don't contradict each other. They repeat. Peoples separated by vast oceans describe the same cycles: creation, flood, fall of the gods, rise of the hero. The myth of Prometheus, a god who gave fire to humans and was punished for it. The Hopi speak of star beings who taught agriculture. The Egyptians say Thoth gave them writing and mathematics. In all cases, someone came from above with knowledge, followed by a break with the divine source. Too many coincidences to be just coincidences. Too many patterns to be just patterns. The mistake is assuming myth equals lie. Myth is truth, compressed into symbols. Trying to understand a myth like a technical manual is like trying to decode a dream using mathematics. You don't calculate a dream, you feel it, you interpret it. You have to move from the literal to the symbolic, from the historical to the archetypal. Because maybe at its core, what we call history is just an impoverished version of something far greater, far older. Something that still pulses in the depths of human consciousness, especially when you dream, or when you feel that life is infinitely more than it appears to be. Science explains much, but not everything. It can measure a heartbeat, but not love. It observes the brain, but not consciousness. It maps the genome, but not the soul. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin once said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." That phrase is not poetic, it's revolutionary. Because if it's true, everything changes. Every assumption about who we are, where we came from, and where we're going needs to be reconsidered. There are moments in life that defy all logic. A gut feeling with no rational basis, yet absolutely accurate. A dream that warns about something that hasn't happened yet. A déjà vu so intense it gives you chills. These aren't system errors, they're cracks. Cracks that reveal something within us that wasn't programmed or domesticated. Something that knows, something that remembers. The problem is, we've been trained to doubt that invisible part of ourselves, to dismiss it as imagination, coincidence, or wishful thinking. But what if it's the most real part of us? What if it's the part that connects us to our true origin? Spirituality isn't a side dish of existence. It's the axis around which everything else revolves. But we live as if it were a luxury, as if it belonged only in retreats or temples or weekend workshops, when in truth it reveals itself in the eternal now, in the silence between thoughts, in the shiver that comes from nowhere, in the tear that falls without reason, in the sudden recognition that you are more than the sum of your parts. This disconnection didn't happen by chance. It was cultivated, because a human being aware of their essence cannot be controlled, cannot be reduced to a consumer, a voter, a statistic. And maybe that's why they invested so much in making us forget. Have you noticed how the history we're told always comes pre-packaged, labeled, and ready to consume? From childhood, we learn simplified versions of reality, as if everything were solved, as if mystery no longer existed. But mystery is everywhere, and so is the invitation to remember. School gives us answers before we've asked questions. Institutional religion offers salvation, but forbids the search. Technology distracts us with lights while extinguishing our inner flame. Remembering who we are has become a radical act, not remembering dates and names and historical facts, but remembering essence, purpose, origin. So, what does it mean to remember? It means sitting in silence until you can hear the whisper beneath the noise. It means questioning not just what you've been told, but why you've been told it. It means following the breadcrumbs of your own intuition, even when they lead you away from the well-traveled path. It means studying the myths not as primitive stories, but as encoded wisdom. It means looking at ancient monuments not as tourist attractions, but as messages from ancestors who knew something we've forgotten. It means recognizing that the feeling of not quite belonging in this world might not be a problem to solve, but a memory to honor. The memory of a time when humanity was more than it is now. When the connection between earth and sky, between matter and spirit, was not broken but whole. As long as we follow the script without question, the play goes on, even if the stage is crumbling. But once you start seeing the script for what it is, you can begin to write your own lines. You can begin to remember that you are not just an audience member, but a co-creator of reality. The story we were given is linear, limited, domesticated. But the real origin may not lie in time. It may lie in consciousness, in the eternal dimension of being that transcends the rise and fall of civilizations. And remembering that is not just an intellectual exercise, it is an act of freedom, an act of rebellion against the forces that would keep us small, confused, and disconnected from our own vastness. Because those who remember cannot be subdued. Those who remember begin to see the stage and the script. They begin to see the ancient patterns playing out in modern forms. They begin to see that history is not what happened to other people in other times, but what is happening right now, in this moment, in this life. The same cosmic forces that shaped Atlantis are shaping us. The same spiritual principles that governed ancient civilizations are governing us. The same choice between wisdom and arrogance that determined the fate of our ancestors is the choice we face today. So I ask you, will you keep acting, not knowing the play you're in? Will you keep following the script that was written for you by invisible hands? Or will you start stepping out of the imposed storyline, one breath at a time? Will you begin to remember who you were before you were told who you should be? If something stirred inside you during these words, a chill, a recognition, a sudden knowing, it's because the memory still lives in you. It lives in all of us. It's the most suppressed and most powerful truth of our time. The truth that we are not accidents of evolution, but expressions of consciousness itself, that we are not separate from the cosmos, but extensions of it, that we are not lost in time, but eternal beings having a temporary human experience. This is not just information. This is initiation into the remembrance of who you truly are. The question is, are you ready to remember? The choice, as always, is yours. But know this: once you begin to remember, you cannot unremember. Once you see the larger pattern, you cannot unsee it. Once you feel the connection to your true origin, you cannot unfeel it. And that perhaps is the most dangerous thing of all, not to them, but to the small, scared, separated version of yourself that they want you to remain. The awakening has begun. The remembering has started. And you are part of it.